Hi, I'm Catherine Morgan. I am a career transition expert, business consultant, and the author of This Isn't Working, Evolving the Way We Work to Decrease Stress, Anxiety, and Depression. And today I'm excited to put on my business consultant hat and talk to my dear friend, Lorraine Minister. Lorraine is a learning and development expert, and we're going to talk about making online courses because pretty much every consultant or coach I know thinks that they should have one or do one or make one, and Lorraine is truly an expert in this. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, thanks for
Tell me
having me.
a little bit about your background so that people can understand how you came into digital platforms and learning development.
Yeah, so I started in learning and development about 20 or so years ago. And it was really when businesses, well, some businesses were just starting to explore digital learning versus face-to-face in the classroom. And since then, I've been mostly specializing in digital learning for various types of businesses and companies and countries.
Yes, you are a global traveler. That's how I met you. First, she was living in Vietnam and now Mexico. And as you can tell from her accent, she might be from New Zealand.
Yes, the twang.
So you just went through the process of creating an online course. Can you tell us a little bit about the course you created and how you landed on the platform that you decided to use?
Yeah, sure. So the course I created was for Matt Willett. He's a thought leader in behavioral science and is part of an organization, bside.io. So this is a course that's available for anyone to do. And when I looked at platforms, I specifically looked at really a whole solution. So as well as doing the course content and hosting videos and having interactions and that sort of thing, I also wanted to look at community, marketing, automations, and web pages. And that helped me decide with what platform we eventually landed on.
Well, that's a robust suite of services. Is it a little overwhelming, or is it great to have a one-stop shop?
Um, Yes, it can be a little overwhelming at first. So we chose Kajabi because it was or is that one-stop shop. Like everything, it has strengths and weaknesses, like any sort of technology. But the ability to automate and do email campaigns and a website, as well as a course and content and that sort of functionality there, made it worth it. They also have a lot of learning materials on their site. So, you know, and most people in L&D are pretty motivated to learn. So it's a little bit of a learning curve, but or for me, being familiar with other technology, it wasn't too steep of a learning curve. And if you went with the separate platforms where you have, a course creation platform and then an email platform and then a website platform, it's going to get complicated because you're going to have to do all the connections and use things like Zapier to keep it going.
Okay, that makes sense. So the holy grail for consultants and coaches is to have a recurring revenue stream that quote unquote, works while you sleep. So there is an incentive to sell books or sell courses. Um, when do you think would be the right time for a thought leader or consultant or coach to consider doing a course?
Okay, so the first thing I think is to build up your community. So I guess some people have the idea of like, oh, I do a course, and they may have brilliant content and lots of great value to share, but if no one's kind of there in the community or asking for it, it doesn't work. So your effort is best spent making sure that you have that community, you have your fans, and maybe you also have people asking for that sort of content. And a great thing to do is to test it out before you build it.
Right. I think it is important to tell people, and I've talked to many people, not just you, about this. It is not an if you build it, they will come sort of thing. There is the community and the people who are interested in the content and driving traffic to the course, as you would with anything, as you would with a service launch, as you would with a product launch, as you would with anything. It is important that people know that. Um, you've built online courses for all sorts of companies, big, small, government agencies. What are a couple best practices that people should do as they're building their content so that it is engaging and valuable to their audience?
Um, the first thing really is to get to know your audience and to talk to your audience and find out what their pain points are. Because if you're building a course, you really want to be building something that's going to make people's lives better or their work better, or it's going to somehow improve what they're doing. And the way to do that is to find out what people's pain points are and what the gap is from where they are now to where they want to be, and bridge that gap to bring them there.
How would you suggest people do that? Is it having interviews with people? Is it sending out surveys? What have you found works for organizations?
Yes, well, it can be both. I think there's a lot more value in talking to people, which can be interviews. You can do this pretty informally as well. Surveys are useful, but you don't tend to get as much rich detail from them. I would start with talking to people who are your potential audience and finding out, how they can be helped, and also keeping that line of communication open all the time on everything you do. There's feedback. What do people need?
Online courses, people sitting here, they have their phone, they have cat videos, they have things that they can do. Even if they're interested in the topic, it's easy to get distracted. How do you keep learners engaged in an online course where it's a virtual course, there isn't an instructor present? What do you recommend people do to include or switch it up? How do we work with people who have the attention span of a goldfish?
Yeah, that's a myth, by the way. The attention span of a goldfish. It's a nice one, though, gives a good visual picture. But you're right, people are distracted. They've got lots of things on. One of the best techniques is to be able to break up the content in bite-sized pieces so people can do little bits of content, and also to switch it up so it's not doing the same thing all the time. So you're not listening to someone talking for 20 minutes. You might have that format where it's a video and it is someone talking, but there might be pauses where that person's asking the learner or the audience to do something, maybe fill in a plan in their workbook, or do some sort of practical activity around the learning. I think that's a key thing, is to switch out of the tell to the show and do.
Yeah, that is how we tend to retain it, because we can think we're retaining the information with, a talking head video, but we don't remember as much as we think we do probably and couldn't recall it. But if we're using it or learning or answering questions or writing about it or, whatever you do, I guess it's more likely to stick. Do you recommend that people mix it up, video content and written content, and what else presentations? Maybe you could have slide decks. Like how how do you mix it up so that people stay engaged and pay attention?
I think one, it depends on you, the person who's the course and content creator, with what you're comfortable with. So, for example, I've worked with people who do videos with no script, and they just talk to the camera. Um,
It's
and
got
then
two thumbs and does a lot of that.
yeah, and then I've worked with people who prefer like a loom style where there's slides and presentation, but they're a little head in the corner. And then there's other people who do more of a storytelling where there's a lot of B-rolls and cuts coming in as well, which is kind of like the TikToky and those the social media platforms. So one, it depends what you're comfortable with, and two, it depends what your audience engages with. So there's no real hard rule of do it this way and not this way. It's really about what you're comfortable with, so it feels authentic, and that it changes up enough, and you're questioning the audience, you're involving them. It's a lot of you and giving them practical activities rather than the format.
Information dump.
Yeah.
I had two people in my inner circle post in a sort of ranty fashion about people being expected to watch videos versus being able to read, and they preferred being able to read, but for compliance issues they had to watch the video, and even at 2x, so they muted the video, had it go through its thing, and then read the content. Do you hear people doing things like that? It's the first time I've ever heard it, but I heard
Yeah.
it from two people in the same week.
No, I haven't heard of that, but I think there's also like the accessibility of content as well, which is not talking about learning styles, because that's not a thing, but I won't go on a rant there. But it's also making content accessible. So, if, for example, I've done an online course recently where it has a video and it also has a script with it, and people can just choose whichever they want. One of the things for that is taking away choice. So there's when you look at corporate e-learning courses, there are some really, really bad ones out there, and unfortunately it gives the whole e-learning and online learning a bad name. But there's things like giving choice, not locking down navigation and forcing people through content, but letting them explore the content and jump around to what's relevant to them. So it sounds like the course that your people were doing was pretty locked down and forced through, which we don't really like as
Yeah,
adults.
I mean, I guess for certain kinds of compliance training, you need that because you need to ensure that the people actually did the thing to protect yourself legally. But for our audience, that's less of an issue. Okay, so let's what's a couple tips for somebody who's sort of new to online learning? How would you orient them? So they need to know what their audience is, who their audience is. They need to know their pain points. They need to know, I guess their audience is why they're interested in the content and what they're hoping to get out of it. Um, what else? Anything else we should know about?
Yeah, I think to practice your content and refine it. So that can be done in a variety of ways. It can be done through meeting or videos, or perhaps you might have a webinar, or you might do a mini cohort and test out your content and your models before building like an asynchronous online course. So test it out and refine as you go. And also pre-launch, you can do things to gauge interest and who's likely to sign up by doing a wait list. So you don't have to build everything first and then go and sell. You can have the idea, you can have a structure, but you can actually create a wait list and hype before building. So then if you're going to have customers.
That's really smart to sell it first. One, it ensures that it actually gets done because you have real people's money that you don't want to refund. So you will actually complete the project. That's good. And you're right, to gauge interest. Are real people willing to take out their credit card and sign up for your thing? And that's worth knowing before you invest a ton of time and money into creating something. Do you recommend people do a beta test group when they initially do their online course? Is that something that you've seen work for people?
Yeah, I think so. It depends. So if your content has been well tested and you've been doing like workshops and things with that, then I think you have the choice to do a beta because of the change of format,
Right.
or not. Doing a beta will be useful to get feedback, but I don't think in that situation that if it's tried and tested, you necessarily have to. But if it's new content, yeah, then I think it's really valuable to do a beta and have, reduce prices and get feedback and then iterate.
That sounds really smart to me. So what I've heard you say is know your audience. Always good plan when you're trying to sell something. Know what they're looking for, understand their price threshold, what they're hoping to get out of it, how they like to interact with the content. Make sure the content is solid, test it first in different settings, and then converting it to the online format, and understand that it's going to require some marketing support, just like literally anything you put out in the world, no different. Did I
Yeah.
miss anything?
And spend effort in building your community first rather than building your course first.
Oh, perfect. It isn't in it. If this isn't the field of dreams, folks, if you build it, they don't won't necessarily come. So that's our warning for you, Lorraine. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. It was a joy.
Thank you for having me here.